A stamp, a signature, another stamp, junk swiftly incinerated in her hands. Wiping ash into the waste bin beside her desk, Blaze sighs as she regards the stack of papers she has yet to sort through, the number hardly seeming to have dwindled despite the hours she's already spent at work. She looks up from her desk, staring wistfully out of the office's open doorway. How she wishes she were anywhere else right now. Technically, not all of this needs her administration. If there was ever a matter unimportant enough to be relegated to a piece of paperwork, it was unimportant enough to be handled by one of her retainers. But it would be rude to pass this kind of work off just because she was feeling a little bored, not to mention the guilt she would feel. Still, sitting here filling out paperwork about zoning laws and farming disputes is going to drive her mad, especially when there's so much on her mind already. Her thoughts drift to last night's dream, though when she catches this, she quickly tries to strike the thoughts from her mind. The dream was odd, yes, and she can't deny how unsettlingly real it had felt, but above all else she remembers it as embarrassing. Her responsibility is to be driven, focused, single-minded in her dedication to her duty. Dreaming of fancy balls and lavish dresses is a poor reflection, regardless of how real it had seemed. Letting these kind of frivolities invade even her subconscious was... Blaze's thought process is broken when she sees someone pass by the doorway in front of her, dropping her pen in shock. Anyone passing through would be odd enough. Her office is relatively secluded, and people generally only come down this hall if entering it is their end goal, but ever stranger is the fact that she knows just who this figure is. A yellow fox in her court is notable enough, but those twin tails are unmistakable. "Tails!" she calls out, rising quickly from her desk as the fox passes by out of her sight. She rushes out from behind her desk and runs towards the hall. "Why are you—" Her words die on her lips as she makes it out to the hall and finds it empty. The nearest corner is still far off. How could he just disappear? Unless... Tails was never really there. Blaze shakes her head, ashamed. Sentimentality is one thing, letting her emotions cloud her mind to such an extent that she starts to misinterpret what's real like this. She is reminded once again of her dream, and the guilt she feels only compounds. Just as she expected, opening up to others had only led her to fall to complacency. She turns back to her office, walking through the threshold to return her work. As soon as she passes through the doorway, Blaze is bombarded with a host of unfamiliar senses. Her eyes squint in the unfamiliar light, starkly different from her gently sunlit office, and her hands fly up to cover her nose, blocking out the sudden, strong, and unfamiliar scent. As she adjusts to the change in scenery, her confusion only grows. She stands in some sort of common room, clearly a home well lived in, but wholly unfamiliar to her, designed and decorated in a style she's never seen in her own continent. If anything, it reminds her of Cream and Vanilla's house, though where that home had been neatly organized and tastefully decorated, this room seems cluttered and a little chaotic. Pictures of various sizes line the walls with no rhyme or reason to their placement. The center of the room, which houses a short table surrounded by a sofa and various chairs, none of which match each other in color, seems to be in grand disarray. Blankets and empty dishes strewn about as if a meal had been eaten here, and nobody had bothered to clean up after themselves. Blaze makes her way closer to the table. Along with the bowls and a couple of controllers, the table also houses more pictures, standing in small frames. One has been knocked over, and Blaze carefully reaches to pick it up and stand it upright. She can't help the way her jaw drops when she sees the subject of the photo, though some distant part of her mind tells her she shouldn't be surprised by this point. Sonic, Tails, and Amy Rose grin up at her, looking considerably younger than how she remembers them. Amy's quills are styled completely differently, and Sonic's quills have yet to darken to the rich cobalt she remembers. His eyes, too, stand out to her, where she remembers them as a bright green. She thinks of the way they had looked in her dreams, so vibrant and expressive. In this photo, they're colored a deep brown, almost black. It makes his eyes seem so much larger, rounder, and Blaze wonders what happened to them to induce the color change. There's absolutely no way that Sonic the Hedgehog wears color contacts. She places the photo back on the table, nestling it among a group of its peers. Most of the photos depict Sonic and Tails, usually together but sometimes on their own, and sometimes paired with what Blaze assumes are various friends of theirs. She recognizes a few, like Amy and Knuckles, but others are completely new to her, like the young red armadillo pictured holding a younger Sonic aloft with one arm, or the odd trio of a crocodile, chameleon, and a young bee, all smiling up at a camera the bee holds a little too close to their face. Sonic and Tails have so many friends. Blaze sighs. No wonder they have no trouble relying on them. She startles when she hears a sound from somewhere else in the house. It hadn't even occurred to her that there may be others here. Is this Sonic's house? She pricks up her ears, making out the sound of faint chatter, objects being moved around, and something sizzling. Now that she's focused, she can identify the smell that hit her earlier as something cooking. She can't tell what, just from scent, but it does smell good. Is it Sonic who's cooking? She hadn't imagined he could. Only one way to be certain. She spots the doorway that leads to a hall and sets towards it. She hopes whoever's in the kitchen won't be too shocked by her arrival. She isn't sure how she got here either, but surely they would be able to work something out together. But when Blaze crosses through that entrance, she's once again hit with a sudden shift in sensation. Just as quickly as she had left it, Blaze finds herself back in her office, the sleek and sparsely decorated room a stark contrast from the room she had just walked out of. She turns back towards the doorway, but outside of it is simply the familiar hall of her palace, as though the common room was never there at all. And, of course, it wasn't. But this instance is one Blaze can't merely dismiss as a fabrication of her mind either. Looking around her office, a feeling like dread starts to set in. What is going on? And, Your Highness? What? Sonic whips around, pan still in his hand. The almost uncomfortable warmth against his palm reminds him of what he was doing. Cooking. Right. He hadn't noticed his mind start to wander. He wasn't even sure where it had wandered to. He's struck with a sudden bout of vertigo, almost strong enough to throw him off balance. He sets the sizzling pan back on the stove, just to be safe.
What is it? What's wrong?
Tails asks, looking 1 second away from leaping up out of his seat. Did you say something? Sonic asks, frantically, desperately. Tails shakes his head.
No.
Sonic sucks in a breath, placing his hands on the counter behind him to steady himself, and then hissing and quickly retracting them when he is reminded the counter behind him is the stove. Okay, Sonic says, turning around and shutting the stove off. Okay, he repeats, and he has to stop himself from saying it a third time, lest it seem like something's really wrong. Tails' concerned expression tells him he's not doing a great job of hiding it.
Sonic?
I think I'm gonna head out for a run, Sonic interrupts. Tails' brow furrows. Sonic has no clearer deflection than that. But before he can be called out on it, Sonic is depositing the contents of his pan onto a plate, pulling on his shoes and giving Tails one last pat on the head before he's out the door. Tails could follow him if he wanted, and if he did, Sonic would probably let him, but Sonic has pulled this enough times before that he knows Tails probably won't.